Hey everyone, in this video we're going to learn how to make a Mario cake topper. So first of all we're going to start off with some Malteser sized blobs of brown modelling chocolate, and we're just going to roll them into sort of an oval shape, rounded at one end and pointy at the other, and we're going to flatten them on our desk and then just go around the bottom with a knife, and this is going to create the sole. And we're going to put in a little mark for the heel and just pressing it down slightly, and that's going to give it the flat bottom that we need. And you're going to do the same with the other one. Try to keep them roughly the same shape and size, and then we're just going to pop them to one side to dry. Pressing down slightly, that's where the trousers are going to sit. And I've just put them on a polystyrene dummy. So next we're going to take some red and we're just going to cover a polystyrene ball. Now this is a 1-inch polystyrene ball, so it's quite small, but it's just going to allow us to take the weight out of the upper body so that it's not going to crush down the legs. And you're just going to cover that and smooth it out as well as you can. Now you want to keep it obviously quite rounded at the bottom where the polystyrene ball is, and then the top bit needs to come up slightly and you need to thin it, and that's going to create sort of like the upper body. I've rolled out some thin blue fondant and we're just going to cut in the dungarees. So the middle part there is going to be the bit that comes up onto the chest, and the bits at the side are going to be the bit that go around. And you're just going to push it into place, pushing it at the back and taking off the excess. And then you're going to scrunch it underneath the ball and just rubbing over to get rid of the lines. Now it really doesn't need to be too neat at this bit because we're going to put his legs there and you're not going to see it, but you do want to make sure that you've got rid of all of the excess. And just using your knife to straighten up those edges. The same blue fondant, we're going to use this to make the legs. So we're going to roll a cone shape now, and then we're just again using the table to flatten the edge. And you're going to check it for the size against the body that you've got. Now the legs don't want to be too long, but in the same instance they don't want to be too short either. So try to keep them sort of mid-length. If you've got a picture of Mario to look at, it'll probably work out a little bit better so that you can see the ratio. Just keeping them thicker at the bottom as well than at the top, and smoothing those out and cutting to the same length. So once you've done that, we're going to take our body and we're going to flatten the side a little bit just so that we could stick that on. And just try to put both of those on. You can see that I'm lifting up the side at one side, a bit on an angle, and just wetting a cocktail stick and sticking that through. And then wetting the top of the fondant, and this is going to be the bit where we stick it on to the body. Now I've put this to dry on a polystyrene block, so I've left a little bit of the cocktail stick through the bottom, and then just using one of your modelling tools, a brush or anything that's sort of got a bit of a rounded edge, a Dresden tool and a little bit of water, and you're just going to push that crease up. Now what this is going to do is it's going to make the trousers look like they're all one, rather than it making it look like you've stuck the legs onto the body. And you're going to do that for the same as for the other leg, and then you're going to stick that on to his shoes. Now this is actually sitting on top of a ganached cake, so the cocktail sticks didn't need to be too long. If you was sticking it onto a regular cake and it just was having the water in the bottom, then I would recommend making the cocktail sticks a little bit longer. We're going to take a tool just to mark in the bottom of the trousers to make it look like they're overlapping the shoes. You can use a Dresden tool, a cocktail stick, anything really. And then just pop in a little bit of water to make sure they're stuck down. And I'm just going to prop this up with a kebab skewer for now. So we're going to do the straps on his dungarees, so the same blue fondant as before, and cutting them quite thin, making sure that they're almost the same. as each other. And then just with a tiny bit of water, we're going to stick those on. Not too much water because otherwise they'll slide everywhere. And then just with a ball tool, we're just going to create a little pocket, and that is going to be covered in yellow for the buttons later on. It also helps just hold it in place as well. Trimming off the excess at the back. And then we're going to do his arms. So I've got some red fondant, I've rolled it so it's roughly the same thickness all the way through, cutting it in half and then cutting off at an angle. I'm going to do this for both of the arms. I've chosen to have one arm up and the other arm sort of like out to the side. They both need cutting at an angle. The one that's coming out to the side, we're going to bend in the middle and then just check it for size, folding in the elbow, and when it looks good, pop them to dry. So I've got a ball here and I'm just marking in the space where the eyes will go. Now you can do this with your little finger, you could do it with your tool, whichever you find easiest to do. And then once you've popped that mark in, we're just going to smooth out the forehead a little bit because we don't want a sort of like a really big line there. Just going to smooth that out. And then I'm going to take a ball tool and I'm just going to mark in where I want his eyes to go. Now the eyes are not circle, they're kind of like an oval shape, so you want to move your ball tool up and down to get that shape. Next we're going to do the nose, so a blob of the same coloured fondant, just checking it for size, pop that to one side. We're going to mark in the mouth with the Dresden tool, so just a slight smile, and then with the sort of like flat side of the Dresden tool we're just going to push up that bottom lip. Now we're not going to see this too much because he's got a big moustache, but still if you just mark it in and then you know where the moustache needs to sit and where his mouth is. So whenever you push it up you always want to rub it with your finger just to get rid of that line. And we've got some white fondant, and again these are going to be used for the eyes. Try to get them the same size, and obviously we're going to roll it into a bit of an oval shape to push in place. Just a tiny bit of water to stick those in, and you're going to try to make sure that it doesn't go rounded. So with your dressing tool or your leaf tool, I've just pulled in the sides just to make it more oval. Tiny ball tool, and I'm just going to mark in where I want the colours of the eyes to go. Now I choose to always do the colour of the eyes in fondant and then go around it with paint. So I've got some really light blue here, and you probably can't see the difference on the camera between the two colours, but we're just going to push those into place. Try to flatten them as much as possible because we want them to be smooth to the eye really, then when you look at it from the side the eye is 3D. And then once you've got both of those, we're just going to go around the edges in some blue. So you could use baby blue or royal blue. It's a nice thin line, and then wetting your brush and bringing all that colour in to the middle, trying to keep the outline just a little bit darker than everywhere else. Next we're going to do the moustache. So I've got the smallest set of my cookie cutters, and I've done one side with the ridge side and one side with the smooth side, and you're going to point off the edges of that. And I'm just going to take a little bit off the middle, trying to keep the corners of the moustache quite pointy. Make sure that you're happy with the placement of it and the size of it. And then we're just going to pop that on with a little bit of water. We need the centres of the eyes to be black, so I'm just taking off a little bit of that colour just to make it a little bit lighter. And the same with the other eye. And then because this is wet we won't need to add any water, but I'm just going to stick the blacks of the eyes on there. Being very careful not to overlap it onto the face. We want that sort of inner eye to be quite straight. Same with the other side. And now I've got some really tiny white dots. Now you could stick these on with water and cut in paste, or if you've got any white paint, you could put those blobs on. You're just going to push those into place, make sure they're firmly stuck down. So we're going to put the eyebrows on. So I've got some of the same black fondant. I'm just going to roll some little pieces that are thin at each side, and then just using the rounded side of the Dresden tool just to push those into place, sticking them on with a little bit of water. So have a play around with them until you're happy with their placement. And you're going to do the same for the other side and stick the nose on with a little bit of water, pushing it into place so that it's not too far away from the eyes. Even though he has got quite a big nose, it is still quite close to his face. So once you've got both of the eyebrows done, it should look like this. We're going to stick on the ears. So I've got 2 balls, and I'm just going to use my end of my paintbrush just to pull those in a little bit. So trying to do the same place on either side. And I'm just going to mark in quite high on the ear. And then some of the brown fondant that we use for the shoes, I'm just going to stick that on the side of the head. Now this is going to create his sideburns. I chose to do it in two different pieces, the hair, just because I wanted to get those sideburns in. You're going to do that for each side. So once you've got those on, it should look like this. I've got some more of my skin tone fondant, and I'm just going to stick that on a cocktail stick that goes through the body, and that's going to create the neck. Now it doesn't need to be too thick because he doesn't really have a big neck, so you don't really see it, as you can see, but it just lifts the face off the shoulders so much. So for the back of the hair, again, nothing too neat because it's not going to be seen anyway. It's covered by a hat and there's not much detail there. So I've just cut out a wedge of fondant, and I'm just shaping that around the head, making sure that it's attached with some water. We're just going to chop off a little bit of the head, not too much, but we're only doing this to make sure that the hat sticks properly. So once you've got to this point, we're going to stick that onto the cocktail stick with a little bit of water, and then cut out a small red circle and then cut it again, and this is going to create the peak of the cap. Stick that on with a little bit of water, and then next we're going to take a ball and flatten it at one side, and this is going to create the top part of the cap. We're going to roll it on the desk, and that's going to create a nice smooth shape that the M can go on later on. And you're just going to attach that again with a little bit of water, pushing it into place and making sure that there's no gap between the peak of the cap and the top of the hat. That's what you should have. Next we're going to stick on those arms, so just a little bit of water, and you're going to push it into the place that you want it to be. Now with the one that's standing up, I've got a cocktail stick, and I'm just going to pop that in the arm, and then I'm going to push that into place. Find it easier to take the cocktail stick out and put that where I need it to be, and then attach the arm so that it's not affecting the arm, it's not taking it out of shape that I've put it into. Just making sure that it's fully attached. So the yellow bits for the buttons, just going to put those on with a little bit of water. And then next we're going to stick the badge on the hat, so just a small white oval. And then we're going to do the hands. So I've rolled a cone and I've flattened one side. And then with some scissors or with a scalpel tool, we're going to cut in the area for the thumb. So that's like a triangle we're taking out there. Then we're going to smooth over the thumb because it needs to be rounded. We don't have pointy thumbs. And then just mark in where the folds are going to be. So you want 2 folds, and that's going to allow us to put the hand into a fist shape. So before we put the thumb down, we're going to mark in the fingers. Now you're going to mark it in 2 different sections. The first bit at the base, and then we're going to do the upper part of the fingers. Now the reason that you split it into 2 is so that you're not affecting that shape of the fist that we're trying to make. And then you're going to tuck the thumb in. And that's how we're going to make our fist. We're going to roll off the excess because we want to chop it sort of just underneath. I've put in a cocktail stick that's going to hold on the hand, a small flat circle that's going to create the base of the glove, and then just a little bit of water, and that's going to attach the fist onto there. You're going to make the same fist for the other hand. So just making sure that it's in the right position. So again, we're going to put a cocktail stick in there and a small white disc that's going to create the base of the glove. And then with this one, because the arm has not had time to dry, you will need to prop the arm up a little bit. So I just stacked some of my colours up and put it underneath the fist. And we're just going to make the M that goes on the top of the cap. So I'm just looking at a picture while I'm doing this and just trying to cut it out as close to what I can. You could draw it on. Sometimes I find when you draw things on, if you make a mistake and then you try to take it off, you can sometimes leave a little bit of a stain of the red that's there. So I just thought that this was going to be the easiest way to do it. Can be quite fiddly because it is quite small, but personally it's just the easiest way for me to do it. So trying to just get it as neat as you can, and then just with a little bit of water we're going to lift that up and we're just going to stick that on the front of the hat. Now you can see that it doesn't fit on properly, so I'm just going to trim off a little bit of the sides just to make it sure it stays within that white oval that we created. So once you're finished, you should have something that looks like this. Here's the cake that I put the toppers on. I hope you liked today's video. If you did, please leave a comment down below. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more of my videos, please hit the subscribe button to stay up to date with my tutorials. Thanks for watching.